Chapter 7 Glacier Meadows. After the lakes on the High Sierra come the glacier meadows. They are smooth, level, silky lawns lying embedded in the upper forests on the floors of the valley. And along the broad backs of the main driving ridges at a height of 8,000 to 9,500 feet above the sea. They are nearly as level as the lakes whose places they have taken, and present a day even surface free from rock heaps, mossy boggins, and the frowsy roughness of rank, coarse-leaved, weedy, and shrubby vegetation. The sod is close and fine, and so complete that you cannot see the ground, and at the same time so brightly enameled with flowers and butterflies that it may well be called a garden meadow, or meadow garden. For the plushy sod is in many places so crowded with gentians, daisies, ivesias, and various species of orthococcus that the grass is scarcely noticeable, while in others the flowers are only pricked in here and there singly or in small ornamental rosettes. The most influential of these grasses composing the sod is a delicate calamagrostis, with a fine filiform leaves and loose, hairy, airy panicles that seem to float above the flowery lawn like a purple mist. But, right as I may, I cannot give anything like an adequate idea of the exquisite beauty of these mountain carpets as they lie smoothly outspread in the average wilderness. What words are fine enough to picture, then I too what shall we liken them? The flowery levels of the prairies of the Old West, the luxuriant savannas of the South, and the finest of the cultivated meadows are coarse in comparison. One may at first sight compare them with the carefully tended lawns of pleasure grounds, for they are as free from the weeds as they, and smooth, but here the likeness ends, for these wild lawns with all these exquisite fineness have no trace of that painful, licked, snipped, repressed, much appearance that pleasure ground lawns are apt to have in even when viewed at a distance, and not to mention the with which they are brightened. The grasses are very much finer in both the color and texture, and instead of lying flat and motionless, matted together like dead green cloth, they respond to the touches of every breeze, rejoicing in pure wilderness, blooming and fruiting in the vital light. Glacier meadows found throughout all the alpine and subalpine regions of the Sierra, in still greater numbers than the lakes. Probably from 2,500 to 3,000 exist between latitude 36 degrees 30 and 39 degrees. Distributed, of course, like the lakes in concordance with all the other glacial features of the landscape. On the head of the waters of the rivers, there are what are called big meadows, usually from 5 to 10 miles long. These occupy the basins of the ancient ice seas, where many tributary glaciers came together to form the grand trunks. Most, however, are quite small, averaging perhaps but little more than 3/4 of a mile in length. One of the very finest of the thousands I have enjoyed lies hidden in an extensive forest of the two-leaved pine, on the edge of the basin of the ancient Tolomé Mer de Glace, about 8 miles to the west of Mount Dana. Imagine yourself at the Tolomé soda springs on the bank of the river. A day's journey from above Yosemite Valley, you set off northward through a forest that stretches away indefinitely before you, seemingly unbroken by openings of any kind. As soon as you are fairly into the woods, the gray mountain peaks with the snowy gorges and hollows are lost to view. The ground is littered with fallen trunks that lie crossed and recrossed like storm-lodged wheat. And besides this closed forest of pines, the rich moraine soil supports the luxuriant growth of ribbon-leaved grasses, bromus, Triticum, Calmagostis, Agostis, etc., which rear their handsome spikes and panicles above your waist. Making your way through fertile wilderness, finding lively bits of interest now and then in the squirrels and Clark crows, and perchance in a deer or bear. After the lapse of an hour or two, vertical bars of sunshine are seen ahead between the brown shafts of the pines, showing that you are approaching an open space. And then you suddenly emerge from the forest, shadows upon a delightful purple lawn lying smooth and free in the light of like a lake. This is a glacier meadow. It is about a mile and a half long by a quarter of a mile wide. The trees come pressing forward all around in close serried ranks, planting their feet exactly on its margin, and holding themselves erect, strict and orderly, like the soldiers on the parade, thus bounding the meadow with exquisite precision, yet with free curving lines such as that nature alone can draw. With inexpressible delight, you wade out the grassy sun lake, feeling yourself contained in one of the nature's most sacred chambers, withdrawn from the sterner influences of the mountains, secure above all intrusion, secure from yourself, free in the universal beauty, and notwithstanding the scene and so impressively spiritual, you seem dissolved in it. Yet everything about you is being meeting with warm, terrestrial human love and life, delightfully substantial and familiar. The resiny pines are types of health and steadfastness. The robins feeding on the sod belong to the same species you have known since childhood. And surely these daisies, larkspurs, and goldenrods are the very friend flowers of the old home gardens. Bees hum in a harvest moon. Butterflies waver above the flowers. Like them, you lave in the vital sunshine, too strictly and homogeneously joy-filled to be capable of partial thought. You are all eye, sifted through and through with light and beauty. Sauntering along the brook that meanders silently through the meadow from east to special flowers call you back to discriminating consciousness. The sod comes curving down to the water's edge, forming bossy, outswelling banks, and in some places overlapping countersunk boulders and forming bridges. Here you find mats of the curious dwarf willow scarce an inch high, yet sending up a multitude of gray silky catkins, illuminated here and there with the purple cups and bells of Rhynthus and Vancium. Go where you may, you everywhere find the lawn divinely beautiful, as if nature had fingered and adjusted every plant this very day. The floating grass panicles are scarcely felt in rushing through their midst, so fluent are they, and none of the flowers have tall or rigid stalks, and in the brightest places you find 3 species of gentians with different shades of blue, Daisies pure as the sky, silky leaved Evensias with warm yellow flowers. Several species of Orthocypus with blunt, bossy spikes, red and purple and yellow. The alpine goldenrod, pistemon, and clover, fragrant and honeyful, with their colorful massed and blended. Parting the grasses and looking more closely, you may trace the branching of their shining stems and note the marvelous beauty of their mist of flowers. The glooms and pales exquisitely penciled, the yellow dangling stamens and feathery pistils. Beneath the lowest leaves you discover a fairy realm of mosses, hypnum, dacryanum, polytrichum, and many others. Their precious spore cups poised daintily on polished, exceedingly small and fragile and delicate, as if only made for beauty. Caterpillars, black beetles, and ants roam the wilds of the lower world, making their way through miniature groves and thickets like bears in the thick wood.